me again. Just a bit about myself. So my name's Adam Cuffe. I'm the co-founder of Blockbank. I've been working in finance now for about 6 years. I became a level 4 qualified advisor in 2012 in the United Kingdom, and that was where I got into finance and began to learn about the nature of the financial system and how money was created. My co-founder Yusuf Sozi was in the back. We actually worked together for some time after a short-term sports career in rugby league, so we go back quite a way. We worked we had our own gym business before I started to get serious about my future and career and stuff. So that's a bit about me and Yusuf. So Blockbank. Now, Blockbank is a concept that I came to create after getting into finance, like I just explained. And our mission is to revolutionise the banking industry and make credit more affordable, even to the unbanked or underbanked countries with full legal authority. So Blockbank in the future will serve as a crypto-funded, decentralised funding platform designed to serve as a funding source for creating businesses, supporting human needs and next generation infrastructure. So the origin of the concept, like I said, came from me getting into finance, but it wasn't until I actually understood the full nature of money creation and how money was made. This information I took from these two main documents. Now these documents are actually on the websites of two of the most prestigious central banks in the world. One of them is the Federal Reserve and the other one is the Bank of England. And both these documents were something I had to study when I was becoming a financial advisor. And that was money creation and the mechanics of money. So the main problem, what we want to address, is the global funding problem. Now, the contrast between interest rate, borrowing rates between developing and developed economies, in some cases is 20%. Now, in some countries, borrowing is so expensive, borrowers have to pay enough money that will pay off a whole loan in 5 years. It'll be tied in for up to 30, 40 years. Now, the question I've got is how could a country develop this kind of lending agreements or this kind of debt? We believe there's a massive opportunity and there's market share available with the correct risk and fantastic growth potential in developing emerging markets. Blockbank will provide low-cost funding to commercial entities and governments throughout the world, bridging the access gap from low-cost funding products to developing economies. We think this will create an environment where developing economies can build their infrastructure, businesses can get access to low-cost financing they need to develop, and we think there's a massive opportunity there to create money and provide a really good service. So, I'm not sure, will you be able to click this link to see this video? I just wanted to put a video on from the Bank of England about the nature of money as well, just to give you a brief idea before I explain things.
Ryland, your article is about how money gets created. We're surrounded here by gold in the vaults of the Bank of England, and historically in the gold standards, the amount of gold would have been related to the stock of money in the economy. Things are very different now. In the modern economy, where does money come from?
Well, let's start off with narrow or central bank money. As the name suggests, central bank money is determined by the Bank of England and consists of notes and reserves. And in normal times at least, notes and reserves are determined by the amount of notes that people want to hold or need for their transactions, and the amount of notes and reserves that banks want to hold, given the level of interest rates in the economy. It is not chosen or fixed by the central bank, as is sometimes described in some economics textbooks.
Your article focuses on broad money. What determines how much of that there is?
Well, broad money, which in many ways is a better measure of the amount of money circulating in the economy, includes all the bank deposits of households and companies. And one of the key points of the article is that banks create additional broad money whenever they make a loan. Now, while this is nothing new, it's sometimes overlooked as the main way in which money is created, and it runs contrary to the view sometimes put forward that banks can only lend out deposits that they already have. In fact, loans create deposits, not the other way around.
Now, your article explains in more detail how lending creates money. It also explains how there are limits to how much banks are likely to create new money as a result of lending. These could be profitability considerations of the banks themselves, through to how households and companies react in aggregate to having increased deposits as a result of higher lending.
That's right.
So if banks create money through lending, what then is the role of the monetary policy of the central bank in this story?
Well, you mentioned some of the limits to how much banks will lend in practice. Well, monetary policy provides the ultimate limit. Now, in normal times, say before the Great Recession, monetary policy is set through interest rates, and that determines the loan rates that are faced by borrowers in the economy and the amount of interest that banks pay out to depositors. And this directly affects the amount of lending that goes on in the economy and the amount of broad money that's created as a result.
So obviously that's normal times. In the wake of the Great Recession, we've seen bank rate reduced to close to zero, and the Monetary Policy Committee embark on a series of asset purchases, often referred to as quantitative easing or QE, to stimulate the economy further. Now, your article discusses a number of myths relating to how QE affects the money supply. Now, QE serves to increase the number of reserves that commercial banks hold at the central bank. But the first myth you discuss is the idea that this in some sense represents free money for banks. What's wrong with that account?
But it's true, as you say, that QE will lead to an increase in the reserves that banks hold with the Bank of England. If you consider what's going on the balance sheets of the parties involved, you can see that it's not really free money. The main point is that QE mainly involves buying government bonds from pension funds and other asset managers, not from banks. The pension fund in this example will receive money in their bank accounts, shown here in red, in exchange for those government bonds, shown in purple. The banks simply act as an intermediary to facilitate this transaction between the central bank and the pension fund. The additional reserves, shown in green, are simply a byproduct of this transaction. Now, while banks do earn interest on the newly created reserves, the key point is that QE also creates an accompanying liability for the bank in the form of the pension fund's deposit, which the bank will itself pay interest on. In other words, QE leaves banks with both a new IOU from the Bank of England, but also a matching IOU to consumers, in this case the pension fund. So in that sense, it's not really free money.
Also starting from the fact that QE increases reserves, the second myth that you discuss is the idea that these reserves are then multiplied up into additional loans, and this is what gets the economy going. Indeed, this is the essence of the so-called money multiplier theory of monetary policy and how that stimulates the economy, found in many economics textbooks. How is this account misleading?
Well, it's true, as we've discussed, that QE will lead to additional reserves held by the banking system. But banks cannot lend those reserves directly to households and companies. They have to make additional loans and matching deposits. And the simple fact of banks having more reserves will not materially affect their incentives to make lots and lots of additional loans to households and companies in the way the money multiplier mechanism that you mentioned would suggest.
So how does QE affect the economy?
QE affects the economy mainly through the extra bank deposits that pension funds and other asset managers end up holding. Those asset managers will use those deposits to buy higher yielding assets, such as the bonds and equities that companies issue. That will raise the value of those assets and lower the cost to companies of borrowing using those instruments. That's the key way in which spending in the economy is affected. But that could also mean that QE might reduce bank borrowing if companies use some of the funds raised by issuing bonds and equities to repay some of their bank loans.
Now, this video explains at the beginning a bit about how money is created, and now the thing with broad money against central bank money is broad money is a kind of...
Hi there, my name is Chris and I'm the co-founder of thefreedomentrepreneurs.com. Today I'm actually shooting a video here in my backyard in the beautiful Perth, Western Australia, but most of the time you won't find me here. You actually find me and my team. We're usually travelling all...
No, but broad money is the kind of money that businesses will use to develop, and it's important that you have an idea of this before I go into a bit more about our project. To issue more loans and money, there are key legal requirements. Now, to do this, you need to be able to carry out banking activity. The main legal requirements are a banking license and a registered legal entity. In order to acquire a banking license, the entity must satisfy specific criteria set by the regulator. These are fit and proper individuals, so people with the appropriate experience and knowledge. With the appropriate experience and knowledge, capital and adequacy ratios, and the correct legal structure. Now, once all this criteria has been met, the banking license can then be issued. Now, in regards to our project, all the following regulatory requirements have so far been satisfied. Now, we've applied for 2 licenses. The first one's in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The second one is in Uganda. The Vincentian license, we should actually have that approved by the end of February. And the Ugandan license, we'll get this around March time. Yep, March. We do wish to license in some remaining jurisdictions, Bahrain being one. We were actually at the Capital Club in Bahrain, which is similar to Planet Blockchain. It's a meetup, and we were invited to join the FinTech sandbox there. So we're working with a gentleman called David Parker who runs that meetup. Another site we're looking to develop was Lithuania and Singapore. We've also got a data protection license, public liability insurance, and we will be adhering by the Basel 2 and 3 compliance, the voluntary compliance, which will be in the reserve ratios. Now, the importance of licensing in relation to our ICO is failing to obtain licensing has caused problems and distress for ICO investors as token value for such projects has decreased. Now, Blockbank has an advantage due to the fact we've already submitted our license and got it in principle, and we've invested heavily to mitigate risks for our investors. So the amount of money we've had to put in to get this far and prove, to the regulators is £3.2 million, and that's been provided by a private investor of ours. So the next step, once licensed, and the banking company can carry out banking activity. Specifically to issue loans and distribute them, there are 4 key other elements. These are banking software, interbank partners, digital payment gateways, and payment messaging services. So our banking software is being provided by our partner called Mambu. Mambu is based in Germany, and we're actually flying out there on Tuesday next week to start the training and the implementation of getting the system online. The main benefits of the Mambu system is it's cloud-based, so it fits our project where it can be accessed anywhere in the world. You just need an internet connection. Also, it's very secure. It's got 2 GB encryption. There's unlimited scalability. Plus, the system has integration by the APIs with relevant systems. Now, those relevant systems are actually our interbank partners. So, Royal Bank of Canada will handle our international payments. Clearbank is actually the first new clearing bank in the UK in the last, I think it's 20 years. There was only 4 until now. So we've applied with Clearbank along with the Royal Bank of Canada. Our payment gateways, we're actually working with a company based in Canada called Intercash, who will be handling all our debit card payment facilities. FuseX is the next generation cryptocurrency card, which can handle up to 15 different cryptocurrencies in one card. We'll be integrating them for the crypto side of our business. Our payment messaging services, we've opted to use Swift as well as Stellar. Now, Swift Alliance 2 messaging services is actually a smaller version of the Swift payment gateway. It means we can actually start quite small and then upscale as we develop our business. Stellar, I'm sure you've heard of Stellar. They were founded by one of the partners of Ripple. We decided to go with Stellar over Ripple because they have a much more decentralized ethos and approach, whereas Ripple are quite let's say corporate as how they want to do business in the future. So now the automation product delivery is a key feature of our business. We want to be able to let users apply to the system, and then once everything's verified, get their finance, the products, what we're offering, delivered in real time. To do this, we're going to develop our own blockchain system. Now, this is called the DDAMS system. It's the Digital Direct Application Management System API, or DDAMS. Now, what is a DDAMS? DDAMS is a cryptographic algorithm that will utilize the Ethereum blockchain. Clients will use the system to submit their funding application into the core banking system directly via an online portal on the Blockbank website. The DDAM's blockchain will store all banking information as well as a register of banking activity to provide transparency to all users. DDAM's blockchain will also store transaction and distribution bonuses. What does the system do? It provides a streamlined protocol to deliver all client information into the core banking system, calculate product features in real time. DDAMs will also provide the crypto register of token holders, the route to claim their bonus drawing rights on annual profits. The cost of software will also distribute funding via smart contracts. Once criteria has been met, clients can expect real-time distribution of funds. Now, sorry guys, I'm a bit behind the so I'll do as quickly as I can. The distribution of funds will happen via the core banking system, which we have just described. By allocating funds this way on a secure basis, the bank can provide funding where needed, while simultaneously minimising risk. Now, risk is very important for our business. We have a strict risk profile where we won't really lend on anything above 55% of an asset base on a client. The provision of secure financing with appropriate risk controls will provide emerging economies the finance they need to develop. With a decentralised online platform, funds will be available easily anywhere in the world. We believe crypto banks will become the basis of a new decentralised economy due to the expanded payment possibilities, minimum taxes, improved speed and enhanced security. We believe banks tomorrow will look totally different from banks today. Blockbank is one of the first worldwide crypto banks who will provide services to meet the needs for decentralised commercial models. So I'll skip ahead because I know we don't have much time. Now the solution to the problem we described is the provision of finance with appropriate risk controls to emerging economies. Blockbank is one of the first crypto banks who will provide services to the global need for decentralized commercial funding. Okay, so now the Blockbank initial coin offering. The actual token itself is BBRT, and that's Blockbank Reserve Token. This token represents access to the decentralized banking platform, so for any services, fees, or deposit settlements, the token will be needed to facilitate this transaction. Now, our pre-sale is open. We started our pre-sale on the 5th of January, and there is a 100% bonus available. We actually reduced our token structure by 95%. The reason we did this was to improve the growth potential of our users. So originally we were going to issue 800 million tokens. We dropped it down to 40. The Treasury team will hold 25% of the tokens, and then the community will be able to get 30 million including bounties, and that will be the overall circulation. Tokens are available for sale at the minute at 25 cents, and will be listed at 50 cents. We'll be using the funds what we raise, 2 million used for marketing, 2 million to operate Blockbank over the next 24 months, 1 million will be used for IT management and system integration. We've actually got agreements with these 5 exchanges to list our token as well, so that'll be taking place around September, October this year.
Sorry, is that confirmed?
Sorry, yeah, yeah. The token itself, we've designed it in a way that there is a really robust secondary market demand. Now, to provide stable demand for BBRT tokens, they will need to pay, like I said before, any fees and settlements in BBRT. Blockbank tokens will always be in circulation and in demand. And the reason for this is because there's a limited supply of BBRT or Blockbank Reserve tokens, as well as a continuous demand for funding, so token value increased in line with demand. The main reason for this is that Blockbank will only accept reserve tokens as method of payment for Blockbank services. The further benefit is that by securing your deposit in BBRT, as BBRT increases, you can actually offset these increases against your lending, which is quite an interesting feature. Spare tokens, which we don't sell in the pre-sale, will be held in reserve for future partnerships and projects by the Treasury. So again, token features, fee settlement, conversion rights, bonus rights, and funding requests. There's a quick example here of how users can to participate, guys, you'd like to check out our website, it's www.theblock-bank.com. And if you've got any questions, I'll be able to answer them for you.